Darkness comes before the dawn. You gotta know which side you're on and get on with it. Good morning and welcome to the Val Leventhal Show. I'm your host, Val Leventhal, coming to you live on Q4 Radio. That's www.QUE4.org. Also on TuneIn and iTunes radio apps. Search for Q4 at airtime. And we're locally available in Chicago on AM 1680. Good morning, good morning. I'm going to get on with it, as my theme song says, because I have a wonderful guest today, Scott Wills, who's a friend and fellow songwriter. I'll tell you more about him in a minute. And first, I'm going to start with my rant, as I always do, and this one is called Storytellers. We're all storytellers. Human beings have been telling stories since we first sat around the fire in the mouth of the cave. It's a natural talent. Every corner bar, small town grocery, and inner city barbershop has a favorite story spinner or two. Whether it's the one that got away, or the terrible ex-wife, or an accidental meeting, we have a natural inclination to entertain through describing our experiences to others. Coming home at the end of the workday, we tell each other what happened that day. While basically factual, a good story doesn't depend on the bare bones of the facts, even if you're a newscaster. There's always an emotional or descriptive element added to the narrative. We tell each other why an experience has meaning and how it might relate to other stories in our lives. History, they say, is written by the winners. But there are billions of stories that never make it into the history books. There are oral traditions that preserved the history of a people when there was no written language. There are paintings and other works of art that show the legends and the history of ancient cultures. And in every family, there are stories about long-deceased relatives, perilous journeys to new lands, first meetings of lovers. Stories can be cautionary tales and parables that teach practical life lessons. Aesop's fables and other such morality plays teach us how to behave in society and in the world. Stories form our religions. The Bible, Old Testament and New, is a collection of stories that some people believe are literally true, but whether exactly true or not, these stories teach wisdom about life. The Quran, the Upanishads, the wisdom of Lao Tzu, and the Buddha are all full of stories and parables. It's how we connect to other lives and learn where we fit into the grand scheme of things. We love a good story, and often don't mind that it isn't true. Maybe it makes a true point, but the details may not be factual. This is fine in movies and novels, but our tendency to like a good tale has turned into believing all kinds of nonsense about the real world. Just because it's an entertaining or triggering headline doesn't make it true. Conspiracy theories exist because we love an exciting story. What? The Earth is really flat? We never went to the moon? Biden is a pedophile? Vaccines kill more people than they help? We must be careful about the stories we tell. Not all of them are productive. It's possible to provide what looks like evidence for all kinds of falsehoods. That's because our minds are endlessly spinning tales and looking for connections. It's a wild talent that requires some skill to manage, just like taming a wild horse. We must learn to discipline our minds and make sure of the actual facts of a story before we start to believe. I read The Power of Myth by Joseph Campbell and recommend it highly. It describes the importance of myth in human development in all of our societies. We need our stories. We need to believe that there are powerful forces for good in the world that can protect us from evil. Our myths give us something to aim toward, to aspire to. They help us understand an impenetrable and vast universe. They can also do damage in the wrong hands. Another book I read this year was The Myth of Normal by Dr. Gabor Mate. He describes the myths about health and illness that have wreaked havoc on our minds and bodies. Diagnosing and labeling people as mentally ill, for example, can ruin their lives and prevent them from getting the treatment they actually need. Tom Hartman, progressive writer and radio talk show host, talks about ADHD and has written several books about it. He describes how it used to be considered that these kids were just badly behaved. They were bad kids, and then medical science advanced and decided it was an abnormality, a disease, and hurried to medicate the condition. Hartman says more recent research, however, has demonstrated a high incidence of ADHD among the parents of ADHD children. This discovery caused some psychologists to initially postulate that ADHD was the result of growing up in a dysfunctional family. They suggested that ADHD may follow the same pattern as child or spousal abuse, moving through generations as learned behavior. The dietary cause advocates contended that children pattern their parents' eating habits, and this accounts for the generational patterns of ADHD. But other studies suggest that, like Down syndrome or muscular dystrophy, ADHD is a genetic disease, and a specific gene has been identified by the scientists as the leading candidate. But if ADHD is a genetic disease or an abnormality, it's a really popular one, possibly afflicting as many as 25 million individuals in the United States. Some estimates put the occurrence at 20% of males and 5% of females. Other estimates are much lower, hitting a bottom of 3% of males and 0.5% of females. But with such a wide distribution among our population, is it reasonable to assume that it's simply a quirk, that it's some sort of aberration caused by defective genes or child abuse? Hartman believes the story we've been telling about ADHD is wrong. He says people with these behaviors are simply genetically closer to hunters than they are to gatherers, and they carry the personality traits that make a successful hunter. Keen attention when focused, but easily distracted by sound or motion, something hunters need. They are risk takers and high energy, also traits that help a hunter in the wild. There are now special schools that have found ways to accommodate these kids in their different learning styles without labeling them as abnormal. The school tells a different story about who these kids are, allowing them lots of exercise and fresh air during the school day and adding kinetic elements to learning. They're able to reduce the amount of medication that they take and possibly prevent some of the side effects of being overmedicated that many kids diagnosed with this have to deal with. Songwriting is also storytelling. Early folk songs often had long, involved narratives that were set to music, making them easier to remember and to pass on to others. We're still telling our stories through song. In recent years, actual storytelling as a form of public entertainment is on the rise again. It's interesting to see that because it's a very ancient art form and has been somewhat replaced, except perhaps for children's story hours, with TV and radio and then the internet. Spoken word, either alone or set to music, including rap and hip-hop, has real staying power. The influence of story is part of the human condition. Marketing companies have long known this. Research shows that if facts are presented in the form of a story, the human mind is approximately 22 times more likely to remember those facts. When presented with mere statistics, people only remember 5 to 10% of the information. However, they remember 65 to 70% of a story when they hear it. Advertising companies use stories about who you can become if you buy their product or what the product can do for you. Commercials are tiny dramas that make the brand more attractive. A good example of stories being used in a way that has potentially negative impact on people. Our politics are chock full of stories. Stories about things that happened, about the character and intention of various actors, about our beliefs as a nation. Each side of the aisle spins their own stories about the national temperament, about who to fear and who to trust, about the dangers and errors of various policies. Our current situation has been made more and more divisive by the separation of the storytelling into two camps, each one believing the other is completely misguided and wrong. We need to understand our relationship to story and our capacity as storytellers. It's one of the first human social behaviors. Stories express our emotions, our history, our culture, our morals, our wisdom. They can sway public opinion for good or ill. We must be cautious about the stories we tell to one another and about each other. We must be mindful of their power to influence hearts and minds. In the wrong hands, they can turn America into a fascist dictatorship or help it flower into a more humane democracy. Which story would you choose? If only we could all sit around the campfire and tell our stories to one another, maybe we would see that we aren't as different as we think. Perhaps someday, if we listen closely, we may be able to find areas of connection, even between seemingly completely different narratives. Then we can tell a better human story together, one that may allow for peace in our hearts and in the world. I've been talking with people about how I need a tagline after my rant, other than, thanks for listening. Maybe that's the way it is. Something like that. All right. Well, I have a couple of little political things and announcements I wanted to share with you. This one really got me. I love Ted Gioia. I'm hooked on him. He has a column on Substack. He was a jazz columnist for the Rolling Stone for years. And he writes about all kinds of different things, and including the macrocosm and the microcosm being people like me and my guest today and the rest of us out here that are not, the large gatekeepers. This one is called Stupidity, a Reading List. You get smarter by studying foolishness. So here's how he would teach a 12-week course on stupidity. The Substack column is called The Honest Broker, and I think it's really good. Anyway, let's see what he says here. He's talking about a lot of the books that are just so hard to read and so complex. And today he's going to start sharing his reading list on stupidity because he thinks it's really important. Okay, here we go. Who knows if a dense, aggressive stupidity might not provoke illumination? That was E.M. Cioran, Cioran. I have not heard of that person. Stupid is as stupid does. That was Forrest Gump. So he's first talking about Thucydides, the history of the Peloponnesian War. This is around 400 BC. He says, this book is absolutely the place to start, and it marks an important moment in human culture. For the first time in the Western world, a historian turned to his own society and said, this is stupid. So he studied it. He diagnosed the causes and effects and laid it out for others to learn. His subject was the war between Athens and Sparta, and Thucydides was a participant. He watched as his native Athens laid the foundation for its own defeat through hubris and overreaching. Never before had a historian dealt with such brutal, unflinching honesty when facing the shortcomings of his own generation. We should all learn from this. Week 2 is Tacitus, the Annals. That's about 100 AD. He said, Tacitus is less gossipy than some of the others, but his sober realism makes his dissection of Roman corruption all the more useful. He understands what good governance looks like, but is cursed to live in a time where stupidity, crassness, and self-serving behavior are in ascendancy. Joya says, does that sound familiar? I want to concur. Many of his observations are relevant today, which makes the Annals all the more painful and useful to read. Every politician should be forced to study it from cover to cover. Of course, they won't, but you can. And that was Tacitus, was the author. And then there's Procopius, The Secret History, from 550 AD. 400 years have elapsed since Tacitus, but the Roman Empire became the Byzantine Empire and had not gotten any smarter in the interim. This new phase of imperial stupidity, brought to us by Procopius of Caesarea, he sees Emperor Justinian and Empress Theodora close up and personal, and what he knows is dangerous to tell. You can't expose the stupidity of rulers without paying a heavy price, so he writes in secrecy for his own satisfaction and the benefit of posterity. The secret history was so secret that this book was unknown until the Renaissance. A manuscript was discovered in the Vatican Library and published in 1623. I only wish insiders would write with such bravery and honesty in our own times. And the last one I'm going to mention is Barbara Tuchman, The March of Folly. That's from 1984. She never earned a graduate degree in history, but that did not prevent her from winning a Pulitzer Prize twice and teaching at Harvard. She published the best modern guide to stupidity, The March of Folly, in 1984, where she covers everything from ancient Greece to the Vietnam War. Few scholars have ever put more faith in the notion that history has painful lessons to teach, and historians carry a responsibility to impart them. Some believe she was too harsh on the U.S. foreign policy establishment in her critique, but subsequent events show them repeating the very same errors that she highlighted with similarly disastrous results. And then the last one, Erasmus, In Praise of Folly, from 1511. Joya says, we cannot convict the foolish without giving them a chance to respond. For that, we must turn to Erasmus of Rotterdam, who delivered a brilliant defense of folly. He almost convinces us that stupidity is superior to wisdom. Foolishness, he claims, is the path to a happy life, maybe even a saintly life. This may be where Shakespeare got his idea for fools who say wise things, which is a recurring trope in his plays. When Dostoevsky wrote The Idiot, he pushed this notion even further, insisting that any genuinely good and benevolent person must appear a fool in the eyes of the world. I love that. So anyway, I just wanted to share that with you. And just to think about the idea that if you can be inoculated against a disease by having some of that disease enter your system, perhaps you can be inoculated against stupidity by studying it, which is, I think, a really fine idea. And now I'm going to go talk about my guest today, Scott Wills. And Scott Gordon Wills. Here's his biography. A Chicago-based musician and composer. His original songs span many genres, including American traditional, country, blues, jazz, and rock. He is widely respected as a songwriter and performer, and certainly is by me. His songs are known for their incisive, often sardonic lyrics and emotionally articulate melodies, and explore themes of transformation, redemption, and mortality. Scott performs and records his music under several monikers, including his alter ego Mo Stanton, and the virtual bands Claxton Clay, Bad Wiring, under the nom de plume Dexter Watt, and the Remberton Consort. I'm not familiar with that one. He has collaborated in recordings and live performances with many excellent musicians and has released 12 singles and one album, Transients Welcome, recorded during a long collaboration with Chicago composer and producer Andy Mitron, who also helped me with my CD. His music and music videos are available through Spotify, Apple Music, Bandcamp, SoundCloud, YouTube, and other online sources. He's registered BMI. In 2020, Scott founded the Manitalk Music record label, Dime a Dozen Publishing, and the Eddy Street Recording Studio, where he produces recordings for his own and other artists' releases. For about 15 years, he and his wife, actor Betsy Means, who has been on the show, hosted house concerts in their home, featuring a rotating parade of musicians, poets, and actors, of which I was fortunate enough to be one. The concerts became a community-building haven for all seeking live performances in a performer-friendly venue, better called a listening room. In addition to his work in music, Scott is a visual artist, designer, and videographer, and has recently completed a documentary video on his series of mosaics and sculptures composed of cast-off materials, which is just wonderful. And I'm going to invite Scott to join the conversation in just a second, but I think I would like to play a tune first. So I'm going to play part of this one. This is one I've played on the show before, but it is on the new CD, which is called Transients Welcome. At the Bandcamp page, you can listen to and download the album as well as the album cover, liner notes, and lyric book with accompanying photos, which is great. And you can find things about this at manitalkmusic.com. That's MANATAUCK music.com and facebook.com/manitalkmusic. And this song is The Road to Kingdom Come.
It's been many a long and rugged mile, many seasons gone in and out of style, and the sun is shining for a while on the road to kingdom come. Appreciation is long, long overdue for the days I didn't think I'd make it through. I lost my way, but I found a friend in you on the road to kingdom come. Our souls collided, we took a look inside and saw someone there that no one else could see. You took my hand when I needed a guide. When I believed in nothing, you believed in me. There were times I'd just as soon forget, but there's one thing I never will regret. And that's the way my life changed when we met on the road to Kingdom Come. We shall not cease till we find a way to peace. The restless soul is never satisfied. The road goes on, nobody knows how long. You're the one I want to walk beside. We may be only footprints in the sand, but I believe we came here to understand. Day by day, step by step, hand in hand, on the road to Kingdom Come. Day by day, step by step, hand in hand, on the road to Kingdom Come.
Welcome, Scott.
Hey, Val.
I'm welcoming Scott Wills, the wonderful Scott Wills, sometimes known as Dexter Watt, sometimes known as Claxton Clay. I have played Cleaning Up the Mess You Left Behind a number of times in reference to you know who.
Still correct.
I don't even want to talk about it.
Still valid.
Yes, oh my God, we're still cleaning up the mess left behind. And he's making more mess as we go. I just watched I posted a bunch of stuff on Facebook this week, various clips of, how bad it is from various people that I thought everyone should see. This is what he's doing. This is what he's done. This is what, I just don't get it.
Actually, that song was written during the end of George W. Bush's regime, and I thought it was, even maybe more valid then.
With what happened in 2008 when Obama got in.
Yeah. But it's kind of an all-purpose kvetching about stuff that's happened.
Oh yeah.
Thanks to somebody in your life or somebody in your orbit.
Sure. Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah.
It works. This is what I love about, and we'll talk about that in terms of storytelling and songwriting.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, I'm going to pull up something so I remember what we wanted to talk about. I just lost my train of thought. What were we talking about?
Well, storytelling, songwriting, in general. So you've got some stories on your album too.
I do. I tell. It's pretty personal, this album. There are a lot of personal stories. There's some political things that are less personal, but a lot of them are very personal. And I've just been reading the words of someone. I forget who said it, but I thought it was so great about how the more specific you are. Oh, it was a songwriter. I think Maggie. I forget her name, but she was on NPR being interviewed. She's an up and coming artist, and I forgot her last name.
Yeah.
Was saying that the best way to connect with people universally is to be as genuinely, authentically specific about how you really feel, because that's where we all connect.
I couldn't agree more.
Yeah.
And if the storyteller or the songwriter, as the case may be, can't be honest and authentic, why should you believe them?
That's right.
Why should you even listen?
Of course.
There's a lot of, we've got a media hungry world, right?
Mm-hmm.
Content is king, and a lot of people are pumping things out that authenticity isn't even in it. It's not even on the radar screen, and that's by design.
And that's not even talking about AI, which we'll get to in a minute. But go
Yeah,
finish your
right.
thought.
So we need to have some stuff that is authentic, just to be touchstones for us, and that we can, even if we can't maybe share that same experience that's being spoken of, it touches something in us that we have experienced, and that's where we find our commonality.
Absolutely. You had asked me if that you say my songs tend to be positive. The messages tend to
Right,
be positive.
right.
And yes, that is conscious. I mean, even in a sad song like the one "Fine Red Wine," where I'm singing about losing a loved one.
Yes.
There's the feeling of moving forward. Moving past it in the song, and yeah, I think if you have a platform, the reason I started this show in the first place was I was tired of people arguing, and I wanted to find a way to counter all the negativity and all the hate, especially the hate. So I do tend to talk about positive things as much as possible, because I feel like, and I have a couple friends who've questioned me about that and said, are you in la la land? Don't you understand that things are not all positive? And I'm like, no, of course I do, but it's just that I want to be shining that light in the darkness.
I love you for that.
Yeah, you too. Back at you. I mean, I feel like, what more important thing could you do with your life? It's not that people don't know things are bad, but the point is, things are also good. Always. There's always. I had a long conversation with a friend the other day, and she was feeling really, really down, and it was not a moment where I could do the uplifting part, because she just wanted someone to hear the pain. But it was very frustrating for me, because I just wanted to say, now you just named 5, 6 horrible things that have happened to you in your life and were very traumatic. You've had more than your share. But completely ignore all these incredible good things that have happened. I mean, she's also had more than her share of those things, in terms of personal gifts, in terms of windfalls and fortunate occurrences, So I just think we have to train our eye, just like an artist. We have to train our minds to recognize the good.
It's a reframing, and you brought up that tune, "Cleaning Up," earlier.
Yeah.
That's really about reframing. There's a line that goes, "I can make some real good lemonade out of this old lemon lime." It's like, that's, I don't like to be left hanging without some kind of redeeming aspect.
I agree.
To a story,
I think it's more true if you see both the good and the bad.
Yeah.
Now, I know people whose mission it is to expose the bad. That's their mission. I get it. But in the history of human development, all through the civil rights movement, all of that, you need happy warriors, because otherwise you burn out. And people like Frank Zappa, who was so angry about the state of things. I mean, being so brilliant and creative. I think it killed him. I think that's where his cancer came from. It's just something I feel. It was digestive. So if you can imagine being angry and upset for your entire life, I mean, maybe not. He did get to let some of that go by performing, but still, I don't think it's constructive. I think I'm a yin yang person. I think it's all connected. So,
well, I think in the example of Zappa, I think he had a sense of how things could be, and I think many of us do, and that's what's so frustrating and disappointing, if you will, or angering when we see how things could be and see how they're so far from the mark because of the entropy that happens in society. And we kind of we can descend to the lower depths without even meaning to, just because we're not paying attention.
Yeah, and it suits the powers that be and the marketing people to keep us angry and afraid, because then we seek comfort and we buy things
We
more.
can be manipulated.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And of course, our politics. It is very frustrating. You know, all of our religions, all of our wisdom traditions say that love is better than hate. That love is really the place we ought to pin our North Star. You know, everybody, kindness, be kind to your neighbor. It's all in there. It's all in there. And then you have people professing to be evangelical Christians who are preaching hate.
Right.
It's just frightening. You know.
Yeah, it's very twisted. But I think if everyone could experience a life-changing event with really open eyes and heart, that would be a really powerful change agent. I just had the experience of being in the hospital and
That's right.
and undergoing surgery, and man, coming out of that anesthetic, I wasn't thinking about hate. You know,
You were thinking about gratitude.
yeah, you better believe it. And the people who were around me who were taking care of me, man, this was a laser view into the goodness in humanity. I got a heavy dose of that, and I just thought this is the kind of experience that can turn people around.
It's true. And even simple things. I talk about Daryl Davis all the time, who is an African American boogie woogie piano player.
Yeah.
Who goes to Klan meetings and makes friends with.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think he has hundreds now of robes and hoods that people have sent him. Even grand wizards in the Klan have sent him and said they've left the Klan, and you know, because of him, because just meeting him and having him be a human and be friendly and then start asking questions. You know, his big question is, you know, why do you hate me? And of course they say, well, I don't hate you. And he'd say, well, you know, your organization hates people who look like me.
Yeah,
you know,
yeah.
And
you
that,
really want to be part of that.
Right. And there have been many who have changed. So meeting him was that event that you're talking about.
Yeah,
you know,
that's
amazing.
real power.
Yep. And then people want to criticize. You know, it's like, it's frustrating. Once again, I posted something about something good that Biden had done for the economy, and just a string of, I try not to do too much Facebook because it drives me nuts, but, you know, a string of objections to, you know, but this is bad, and that's bad, and this is bad. And I'm sort of like, you know, when are we going to stop? And this is coming from the left, and I'm a lefty, but when are we going to stop shooting ourselves in the foot? You know, when are we going to look at things with clearer eyes and say, okay, well, this is the nominee.
Yeah.
Do we really want the other guy?
Yeah.
You know, and is it really that one issue that's going to keep you? I mean, the history of American politics and our interference and our war making and our colonial and imperial behavior, and you're going to blame it all on Joe Biden for not changing it fast enough while he's trying to change it. You know, it's just, I get so frustrated with that, and then I remember that I have a show on Sunday and I can talk about positive things.
Thank goodness.
Yes.
Well, I can't speak with authority on this because I wasn't around in the 19th century, but I get the sense that then compared to now is much more fragmented in terms of the way society functions, you know, just because there's so much more coming at you. On the media, you know, in the speed of everyday living.
It's true, and it's starting younger and younger.
Yeah.
I just read some research about preschoolers with their own cell phones and the amount of time they're spending on screens. And we, as humans, we evolve, but not that quickly. You know, I mean, it takes a number of generations to evolve to deal with. You know, we're getting this onslaught. It used to be if you lived in a small community or village or whatever, you got news when people came through from somewhere else. You know, you didn't really know what was going on the other side of the world, you know. And now we're getting all of that, and most of it is being targeted to market something to us.
Yeah. You mentioned evolving, and that makes me think of consciousness and evolving consciousness and consciously evolving. And again, I'm not an authority on Darwin for sure, but it seems from what I have read that certain species evolve in a what could be called a conscious way. So their beings, the creatures or the plants that are evolving, respond to their environment, and they make some sort of decision in their DNA that says, I think I'm going to go in this direction. I think I'm going to grow wings and become smaller and be able to burrow underground. So when the asteroid hits, I'll be protected.
Or grow heavier fur so I can live in the colder region.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so it makes me curious about this kind of grand experiment that we humans are in, of how much we can evolve as a species using our consciousness. And people like Thich Nhat Hanh and Eckhart Tolle would say, yeah, we can do it.
Yeah. We are doing it.
We are doing it.
Yeah.
Albeit, as you say, slowly.
And sometimes there's a leap. We definitely have to look inward. I wanted to share that Ted Gioia article because the idea of being kind of ruthless with our own stupidity, I think, is really important. You can't change it if you don't see it.
Right.
And learning to look at it is a critical part of our conscious evolution, I think. Because, we have to see, okay, well, I want to get somewhere better. What am I doing that's preventing me from getting that, somewhere better? I'm encouraged by the re-emergence of the power of some ancient cultures, like Native Americans, that are showing up in social media and popping up all over and saying, wait a minute, we're still here. And in fact, we have actually the answer about things like conservation of land and water and air. And they do. I mean, they have a lot of really wise things. All over the world, indigenous people have all this truth. And, so do women, and the patriarchy took over and kind of suppressed all of that wisdom and decided that, medical school is better than a tribal elder. And in some ways it is.
For some things, yes. For some things,
not so much.
No. An indigenous might say, well, these ceremonies you see us performing, we're not just doing them for fun. They have real import and real impact on our lives. They're not just something to be studied.
Yeah, they're not just archaeological points of interest for outsiders. They have real importance to us. They mean something. I have an odd relationship with ritual. I think it can be very powerful, but like everything else, it has to be specific to each individual. So, whatever ritual brings your consciousness to the place you're trying to go is what I like. I don't like ritual just because it's tradition or just for the sake of, what someone else thinks you ought to be doing.
Yeah, it can become hollow.
Yeah, that's good. That's a good way to say it.
Yeah.
All right, so shall we talk about storytelling and songwriting?
Yes, and if I can just inject one thing, something you were saying reminded me, you had written earlier about the myth of woke.
Yes.
And
I have some stuff about that, but I'll read it later.
Okay, so I'll hold that until you bring it up. But yeah, let's talk about storytelling and songwriting.
Okay, so you asked me here, do I have a process for constructing a song, a story song, or a song? Where do the stories come from? I do have a process. It's varied. What I've learned over the years is you can't force creation. And so something will inspire me or intrigue me. And what I've learned to do is just document that somehow. If it's a melody, if it's chords, if it's words, just make sure that I work with it, play with it until I find a way to write it down, find a way to record it, something. Usually it's just a concept. The other day something popped into my head. Let's do it. Let's do just one more. What was it? Let's do something one more just for fun. With the one and the fun rhymed, but I can't remember what the line was, but I wrote it down.
Yeah.
May or may not turn into anything,
But it's a handhold through the process of that particular piece.
Right.
Yeah.
And then if nothing else occurs, I just leave it. Then I may come back to it and do some. I love rhymes, so I'll be doing some brainstorming of words that seem connected to that concept, and then looking for rhymes. But it's really just wandering aimlessly through my conscious and subconscious mind and seeing what pops up. And then if nothing happens, I've learned you have to just put it away. And I used to panic and feel like I'm never going to write a song again. Yeah. Months would go by. But what I learned to do, because that was another question you asked me, pitfalls, I've learned not to worry. Yeah. So when I'm not writing, I just practice. Yeah. I just work on the songs I've already written, work on my guitar skills, work on logistical things, administrative things, whatever to do with music. Yeah. And then suddenly one day there'll be 2 or 3 that just kind of pop in and
vamping till ready.
Yes, and sometimes they pop in and they're so complete and so good that you think someone else must have written it first, and you go looking. Has that happened to you?
Those are my favorites. Yeah. Those are the ones where I think, I had very little to do with this. I just took it, took it down.
I just wrote it down, yeah. Do you start generally with the words, or you're such a great lyricist?
Thank you. Well, the lyrics, of course, are important to me, but oftentimes I'll get like a chorus, or I'll get some kind of a tagline, or some, phrase that kind of epitomizes what the song is about for me, and build from that. And sometimes I'll just get a story, like there's a song on Transients Welcome called Cumberland Lullaby.
Beautiful song.
Thank you. That was really a true story. When I first came to Chicago, I lived in this kind of beat up transient hotel, as a matter of fact, called the Gargoyles Hotel on Marshfield Avenue. And
what a great name!
And and I had like a studio apartment there, and one of the guys who lived down the hall, name was Stanley, and he had grown up in Uptown, which hillbilly heaven during the 50s. A lot of folks from coal country,
Appalachians and Native Americans. Right. A lot of Native Americans used to be there too.
Right, and that he was a coal country refugee. He'd come there with his widowed mother when he was a young child, and looking for a better life in the city. So that was the song. I just basically.
I'm going to play that one at some point here. It's a beautiful song.
And you're on it.
I am on it. That's right. That's right. Oh, I guess we should mention that there is a release party coming up. I'll be mentioning it again, but we're going to be on June 22nd at the Jarvis Square Pottery in Rogers Park, and I'll give you more information about that. But Scott and some of his friends and musicians are going to be the opening act, and then I'm taking the stage with my new band, which is some of the people that are on the CD, and not all of them, because it's my first studio record, and there are a lot of people on there that are all not available, but it's going to be great fun.
It's going to be a romp.
Yes, it is. We're going to have a blast. There will be ticketing information. It's free. They have a suggested donation, but they don't sell tickets. It's not actually a bar or something like that. But if you buy a ticket, or order a ticket for free, it's like making a reservation. So you're more likely to get a seat. It's a small place, but we're hoping a lot of people will come out.
Yeah, it looks like a delightful little venue. They have food there and beverages, and I think it's a BYOB. I'm not sure about that.
People do bring things. There's a potluck. They have a feast in the back, but I'm going to check with Saul about whether I have to bring something. I may bring cookies or something, but they have wine in the back. They don't sell it. It's just there for people because they don't have a liquor license. I'm sure,
okay.
So it's like an art gallery opening.
They actually make pottery there.
They do.
And
it's for sale.
Yeah.
And it's beautiful.
And I hear they have a lovely garden, too.
Yes, there's an outdoor space in the front and with like a little fire pit. Yeah. And they'll hopefully have the door open so some people can sit out there who don't want to. We're all still being COVID careful now and then. So but I'm looking forward to that very much. And, well, you asked me some interesting questions here. Are you mindful of writing from a particular character, particular persona as a writer?
Yes. And part of that, I think, goes back to what we were talking about earlier of being the kind of person we'd like to be. Like what kind of things do I want to write about and what stance do I want to take in them? And hopefully I've matured over the years.
I think so.
From when I first started writing. And, I still write some angry stuff and maybe some could be considered accusatory stuff. I think that needs to happen too, but I try to keep it clean and I guess entertaining while being not too preachy.
Mm-hmm. I think you succeed.
Thank you. But I also have this thing I do where I'll take on different characters. Like in Cumberland Lullaby, I'm taking on the character of the mother,
right,
in the story, who subsequently dies, not in the song, but in real life. There's one called Sounds Like Freedom.
Yes.
Which is written from the point of view of kind of a drifter kind of guy, not sort of a bit of a ne'er-do-well who's accepts himself as such. And I like to not think of myself in that way, but
but part of your nature.
So you bring in these parts of yourself that are kind of lurking in the shadows, and you make up a story in their voice.
Absolutely. I have a song I wrote for a domestic violence project where I'm inhabiting the abuser, which was a difficult song to write. It's called Now Look What You Made Me Do. Sure. That's the name of the song.
Yeah.
But I think that's important sometimes. It's a way to, like you said, to share what you're thinking about that without being preachy.
Yeah, right. Randy Newman is
so good at that.
He's so good at that.
Yes.
I really admire his work. He is able to take the stance of, I think it's been called the unreliable witness, where he's speaking as this kind of twisted character that is very unself-aware. So he's speaking straight across to you,
like short people, which is the first thing that comes to mind when you say that.
Yeah.
Like, of course, you don't want to be that guy.
But you want to hear what he has to say, just because sometimes it's so weird.
Keep Your Hat On is the other one. That reminds me. To me, that's very twisted. That song just creeps me out.
Yeah,
it's clearly he's objectifying this woman so severely. In that moment,
he's got a bunch of them like that. There's an earlier song called Suzanne.
Thunderstorm.
An agreement from the universe. Anyway, it's basically written from the standpoint of a stalker.
Yeah,
and Randy just does that sort of thing so well.
He does. Every breath you take is a classic example
Yeah.
from the Police. I love the Police. I love Sting. Very talented. A lot of people get really creeped out by that song and think of it as stalking. I'm not sure he intended it that way, but it does feel that way.
It really does. That one with "Don't Stand So Close to Me."
Oh, yeah.
That's kind of creepy too.
Yes. So there's a lot of that.
Sting, we need to talk.
Yeah. I do tend to try to stay positive, but I recently have one. Of course, as soon as you release a record, there's like 25 more songs that you never got
Right.
on that record.
Right.
I have one about the wars in general that's pretty dark and basically saying, when are we going to stop doing this? It's not a positive message. It's an observation of pain, which is different.
Yeah.
But it is important to do that too, I think. But it's not my usual place to come from.
Yeah, and that's good. It's good to stretch ourselves.
Absolutely. Let's see. You asked me. This is a topic that could take another show. To strike a balance between informing, influencing, preaching, and entertaining. That's a lot. That's what I'm trying to do with the show.
Right. Yeah.
I could probably be preachy sometimes. Whenever I've tried to write something from from that point of view where I'm trying to change minds it can get preachy. So I've backed away from that in the past. And although I do think we have to just speak what we think, speak our truth.
Yeah, I think so too. And people of all stripes are doing that, and some folks are spewing out a lot of vitriolic stuff.
Yep.
And I think it can't hurt to counter that a bit.
I agree. What's the point of being an elder if you can't have a little bit of balance and wisdom to pass on to people?
Right. Strange media age that we live in. The big story now that I'm seeing is between these two rappers that have this ongoing vendetta with each other, right?
Yeah.
And like who's selling the most hits on Spotify or whatever, however they're measuring their success
And do any of us really care about this? I mean, the reason we do is because they keep shoving it in our feed.
Yeah, well, exactly.
Whether and I just read something about again Ted Gioia talking about how the macro culture is failing us, meaning the large corporations, the big gatekeepers. That these AI songs they've been creating things like Andy Mitron does, but calling it like jazz for relaxation or music to work to or whatever. It's not. You don't even know who the artist is,
and there may not be an artist. It may be a bot.
Right.
Yeah.
And then they just force them onto all the platforms.
Yeah.
Spotify or whatever. So it's going to be in your feed. You can't resist it, and they get all these clicks.
Follow the money.
Yeah. It's insane. I mean, one thing he said. You mentioned Taylor Swift. I didn't realize, I kind of wrote her off early on because I went to one record and I listened to a few seconds of each cut on YouTube and it all sounded the same to me.
Yeah.
It was all kind of the same beat and the same sonic texture. So I backed away and then I found the Taylor's version stuff on YouTube, which is just her and the guitar, maybe one other instrument.
Yeah.
The Songwriter version. Completely different animal. So good.
Yeah.
It
wasn't formed by a committee.
No.
It's just her. Yeah.
All that authenticity, all that confession, all that personal style and things. And it's beautiful. And I thought, okay. And one of the things Joya was saying about her was she's helping the whole thing recover by being this hugely successful live tour.
Yeah.
Because she's made more money from that tour than any of these algorithms and nonsense. And people are coming to hear her in person. They want to be in the room, and that's encouraging.
Yes.
It was encouraging.
And I think I may be wrong about this, but I seem to recall hearing that she had bailed out of, I think it was Spotify, just out of protest for the way they treat artists.
Yep.
Which is a very legitimate protest.
It is legitimate. It's wonderful. And the only thing that you might say is she probably wasn't making much money from Spotify anyway, because nobody is making any money.
Yeah, exactly. Well, if anybody is, she is.
Yeah, right. I mean, you have to. It's just crazy.
Yeah,
it's crazy.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, on Bandcamp, if somebody downloads a song, it's $1. And you get 75 cents of it. That's fair. They're providing the platform. On Spotify, they download a song, it's still $1, and you get .000.
Yeah, right. This the same amount that as you would get in interest at your Chase bank account.
Well, on that note, how about we play another one of your wonderful songs here?
Okay.
Speaking of the big banks, how about Diamond Bill?
Yeah, that's a good one.
Is that a good one? Okay, let me find it.
There's a story in there.
Let's play Diamond Bill by Scott Wills. This is on the new CD called Transients Welcome.
Keep the ring. She told me truly, you and I were never meant to wed. I took her hand and kissed her softly. I will keep it here for you, I said. I could not give her what she wanted. She had an empty place I couldn't fill. I let her go down a crooked highway, and it led to Diamond Bill. Diamond rings on every finger, diamonds glittered from his teeth. Black limousine, a whiff of cocaine, the smell of evil around him like a wreath. 2 private planes, a string of strip clubs, a mansion high on top of Hickory Hill, a pretty girl on every corner. She can say skin boots was Diamond Bill. Diamond blue, shine the lights of Memphis, cold and bright above the street of Sunday light. The way to glory, for her they lit a ladder to defeat. He stole her heart, he used her body, bent her mind and broke her will, and threw her down like a broken plaything at the feet of Diamond Bill. It's too late for a happy ending, and there's no one left to save. There's a ring in a local pawn shop and a wreath of roses on her grave. I've always wanted to visit Memphis and see that mansion high up on the hill. I got the fare for a one-way Greyhound, the 38 a Diamond Bill. I got the fare for a one-way Greyhound, a 38 for Diamond Bill.
All right. That was a story. You want to tell us the story of Diamond Bill as a songwriter?
A sordid tale of love gone wrong. Yeah, that's one of the older songs on the album. I wrote that some years ago, and it started out to be about a racehorse. You know, Diamond Bill was going to be a racehorse, and
Oh,
put your money on Diamond Bill. You know,
okay.
and who knows where that idea came from, right? But as I was starting to think about it and play it in my mind, I realized there was a much better version of the song that had already been written. An old one. Stewball was a racehorse. Remember
Oh,
that
yeah, yeah,
one?
yeah.
Wish he was mine.
Yeah, that's
He
a great
never
song.
drank water. He always
Drank
drank
wine.
wine.
Yeah, stew ball.
That's a great song. And I thought, well, I can't do that well, so this needs to be about something else. And I really couldn't tell you where the story came from, but it kind of evolved into this um, fella who has his paramour, his love of his life, has some issues, and he can't hold on to her. She just, she's not content to stay in the small town where they are. So she takes off from Memphis and she gets involved with this, basically a pimp named Diamond Bill, who is a very successful guy. You know, he's got a lot of money and a lot of power, and he basically destroys this woman.
Mm,
You know,
mm.
as often
An old
happens, I'm sure.
story.
Yeah, an old
Yes,
story.
yes, yes.
And so the in the last verse, the protagonist who's kind of relating all this, you see him on a Greyhound bus, and he's now become a vigilante. He's going to go, settle the score with Diamond Bill.
Uh-huh.
And so, not necessarily something that I would advocate, but
But that was how you
but
felt?
that was the story.
Yeah.
And you know, I think there are impulses afoot in our country to deal with, people who exploit other people, and who,
Yes.
by whatever means, sexually, through drugs, through
Financially. Yeah.
financially,
Or
there's
economically,
a
I
lot
guess.
of that going on, and
Yeah.
a lot of people are victimized and um, would like to see some comeuppance.
This is what gets me in the current state of our politics, that people have all these, they're fighting around all these details of various kinds.
Mhm.
And it really comes down to, do you believe in fairness and kindness, and that a democracy is supposed to work for everyone, even the people you disagree with?
Yeah.
Or do you just want everything your way and you don't care how you get there, no matter what you do to other people? So
Right.
those two character, if you could just focus on that, we would have a better world. If we could just encourage the people who actually want, and maybe I'm, woefully optimistic, but I feel that the majority of people, the great silent majority, as they used to call them out there, do not want, fascism, do not want people hating each other and creating violence in our politics and stuff like that. So I don't know whether they're going to come together and vote in time to fix this, but
Yeah.
Well,
and you don't know how they're going to vote, because
right.
I think there are, really, I agree with you, the majority of people, if you get them alone, they want what's best for the world, for themselves, for their
Sure,
families,
sure.
for their country. They may differ on some details about what that would look like, but I think,
And they're being misinformed.
yeah, right, and therein lies part of the problem.
Right.
They're being misinformed and manipulated and being made to feel pissed off. And can I say that on?
Sure.
They're being made to feel pissed off.
As far as I know, that's not on the list. We try not to curse on the show, and the station manager has a particular issue with "son of a bee."
Oh, okay.
And so, even though you're allowed to say that word, so I did play one of your songs.
I know, we got
early
in
on,
trouble.
and I got in trouble.
for
Yeah,
that one.
So I haven't played, but it's a great song.
Well,
It's son of a. Anyway,
The radio friendly version of that will have no lyrics at all.
That's right. I guess you could just have beep.
I think they're going to have
son of a beep.
Yeah.
Yeah. So while we were talking about this and indoctrination and everything, I just want to briefly read this piece on the woke.
Good.
The idea of woke, and then we can talk about that. This is from Judd Legum, who has a wonderful newsletter called Popular Information and has broken some really important stories. This one is called The Myth of Woke Indoctrination at American Universities, so it kind of fits with my telling stories idea. According to some prominent billionaires, social pundits, and media figures, American universities have undergone a radical transformation. Institutions of higher learning in the United States, they say, are no longer focused on free academic inquiry. Rather, they are devoted to indoctrinating students on woke topics like critical race theory, systemic racism, and transgender rights. If I was going to try to destroy the country, that's how I'd do it. I'd radicalize the kids. I'd give them the stupidest ideas and run them in their head. Boys can be girls, girls can be boys. This was Joe Rogan. Said this earlier this month. He has millions of listeners. I think we're sending our kids to cult camps. I think students get indoctrinated. I'll read another one. The amount of indoctrination that's happening in schools and universities is far beyond what parents realize, said billionaire Elon Musk, talking to Bill Maher last year. Maher, whom I sometimes like, actually agreed with Musk on this, having to do with the whole politically incorrect thing that he has issues about, which I understand. Musk added on X, the woke mind virus has infested academic institutions to a shocking degree. Venture capitalist David Sachs claims that the far left has taken over universities. If you want the economic and social advancement that a college degree grants you, you have to go to one of these schools and submit to voluntary re-education for 4 years. What the heck? Billionaire investor Peter Thiel says over the last 3 or 4 years, colleges and universities have become more woke and less meritocratic, if that's a word. He's offering students $100,000 to skip college because I don't think schools like Stanford or Harvard will go away or really reform. Charlie Kirk, a right-wing operative with 2.9 million followers on X, wrote a book called The College Scam, which claims that colleges are brainwashing away the future of America's youth. In a March 2023 appearance on, of all places, Fox News, big surprise, Kirk claimed that colleges need to fail because they've been going far too far in the woke direction. In the New York Times, columnist David Brooks asserts that ideological activism is replacing intellectual inquiry as the primary mission of universities. So Judd Legum says these claims are never backed by data. They are based on anecdotes or a general impression, but despite a lack of factual evidence, the idea that universities have gone woke and are indoctrinating students with far-left ideologies has gained widespread acceptance. I actually have a girlfriend who was talking about the Florida governor. DeSantis, yes. And how, he's probably right. We shouldn't be indoctrinating our children to be transgender when they're in grade school. It's like, first of all, that's not happening. And second of all, it's a Chinese talking point and a Russian. It was just crazy, the amount of disinformation. So the best data, says Legum, does not support these theories. Open Syllabus, a nonprofit group, collects syllabi from colleges and universities. The group has collected over 5.5 million syllabi at more than 4,000 American institutions of higher learning. The data is not comprehensive because it relies mostly on publicly available data, but it is the most robust database of what is actually taught on campus in the United States. It revealed that in 2023, woke terms like critical race theory, structural racism, or transgender appear in just 0.08% of college and university syllabi. These are all legitimate areas of inquiry, but are derided by critics as evidence of academia's decline. In any event, the data shows they are not significant components of the curricula. Even generic terms that encompass these appear in relatively few syllabi. The term race, allegedly an obsession of the modern university, appears in only 2.8% of the syllabi collected in 2023. The prevalence of race has remained relatively consistent over the last 15 years. Similarly, gender appeared in 4.7% of syllabi, which has held fairly steady since 2008. Joe Karaganis, the founder of Open Syllabus, told Popular Information, because the woke terms appear so infrequently, it belies any claim that the curriculum has been radicalized at scale. Even limiting the research to a prototypical elite institution, Harvard University, shows that race only appears in 3.2% of the syllabi and gender 0.5%. In most years, terms like critical race theory, structural racism, and transgender don't appear at all. At the University of California at Berkeley, which has long been considered one of the most woke educational institutions in the country, critical race theory appears in 0.38% of the syllabi, and transgender appears in 1.1%. Less than 10% of course syllabi mention race or gender. The reality is that depending on their major, college students in America can go through their entire college career without encountering a single course that focuses on race or gender, much less woke topics like critical race theory. And looking exclusively at sociology courses, which are the major of choice for one in 125 students, you'd naturally find more frequent discussion of topics like race and gender, but well under 1% of sociology courses include the terms critical race theory, structural racism, and transgender. There are examples of topics that are included in college syllabi more frequently now than 15 years ago. Climate change was mentioned in 0.6% in 2008, and it's 1.3% today. Is this what we mean by going woke? So they say it can appear that colleges are indoctrinating students with left-wing dogma because left-leaning students are more likely to enroll in the first place. Published in January 2023, found that accounting for the self-selection, attending college today does not have a liberalizing tendency. Nevertheless, the state of higher education is a legitimate topic of discussion and debate, but it should be grounded in facts, not vibes. So that was all I wanted to share. And then we can move on to what you wanted to talk about woke. You said here, how about this woke thing? Does that inform your writing one way or another? So I want to know how you meant that question.
Well, I guess I was thinking of it in a larger sense than just writing, and in the sense of all of us being on some kind of a space on the pendulum swing that's happening. And I was thinking about how the stuff we write falls in there and maybe follows an influence to try and an impulse to try and influence that swing a little bit in a particular direction. We're experiencing, I hear what Bill Maher is saying, that, maybe sometimes the pendulum swings too far in the...
Society gets overprotective of people.
Yeah. But then again, when it swings to the overly permissive use of hate speech, for example, maybe that's not so good.
No. I know.
Yeah. So
Mar has been bugging me for a while now because that particular topic is so important to him that he's missing the point a lot of the time. But, anyway, go ahead.
Yeah.
Sorry.
No, I think that's true. But we're all missing the point a lot because we're somewhere on that pendulum,
right?
Right. And at any given moment, we're reacting to something. And we can't always be right in our responses if we have the same response each time.
That's right. I just was looking for this is called the false consensus effect. I get these newsletters from this guy who calls himself Gurwinder. He's a social media presence. Yeah. Sometimes I like him, sometimes I don't. But this one, everyone driving slower than you is an idiot, and everyone driving faster than you is a maniac. That's George Carlin. You made me think of that. And Gurwinder says, our model of the world assumes people are like us. We don't just do what we consider normal. We also consider normal whatever we do, which I think is really an interesting one. And somebody made the here, if I can predict all of your beliefs from one of your beliefs, you're not a serious thinker. That's from Chris Williamson. People take beliefs on as like a package deal because it's what they're told.
Yeah.
The team they're on believes in, instead of actually, what we need is, forget critical race theory, we need critical thinking studies.
Well, I mean, they go hand in hand.
Yeah.
And you knock one out of the school system, you knock the other one out, and then, pretty soon you've got no critical thinking and a bunch of sheep.
Yes. Here's an interesting thing I never heard called the Naxalt fallacy.
Yeah.
It says smart people tend to use qualifiers like generally and most, and dumb people tend to ignore them. So you say most people who are pro-choice are also pro-gun control. The response would be, wrong, I'm not. It's like, wait, I said most people.
Yeah.
Not all, not everyone. Men are generally taller than women. False, my wife is 7 feet tall. He said, the Naxalt theory is not all X are like that, which I love. The mistaken belief that because you can name someone on the spectrum that you were talking about that is maybe here, that the center line doesn't exist, because I know someone who thinks that, so then everybody thinks that, or, whatever it is.
Well, that like you say, that could be a whole discussion in itself.
Yes, it could.
That could get into all the theories that are bouncing around about our early ancestors, giving rise to attitudes we have about race and difference in general. Well, are they in our tribe?
Right.
If they're not,
right.
maybe we better attack them. Was that real? Well, we don't know. We can't go back there and see.
Well, I mean, we certainly have attitudes and emotional responses to things based on very primitive, very ancient parts of how we evolved, the whole fight and flight.
Mm-hmm.
I did a thing about fear, and I didn't realize there are two other possibilities. There's fight and flight, but there's also freeze, and then there's submit. So you see it in the animal world. If they're threatened, they can roll over and submit to
play possum.
Right.
Yeah.
Or just freeze in place,
Yeah.
rather than trying to fight or fly. Those are the four, And
Yeah.
we clearly have some.
Well, then there's negotiation.
Yeah.
You ever see a white-tailed deer negotiate with with a guy who's up in the deer blind ready?
No.
Can we talk about this?
Yeah, really, that's like a Far Side.
I really don't taste that good.
Yeah, I just ate something you're not going to like.
Yeah, I've got worms.
Yeah, too bad. Well, negotiation would be the way to go, wouldn't it? In this world,
It would. It would, given the chance.
But that requires people to have something I've talked about before, which is self-esteem, to believe that they can represent, that they can understand, that they can process what people are saying, that they can come to the table and make their thoughts and wishes known. And not everybody has that.
Right. Well, self-esteem and resources, either inner or outer, to feel that they have a place to negotiate from.
Right.
If they don't feel they have that, then no negotiation.
Right. So then if they feel overwhelmed or frightened or that they're not as smart as the people, then they get angry.
Yeah.
And then that's not then they don't want to negotiate.
Then we're back to fight and flight.
Right. And then I question all these maybe it's a problem of youth, although I do know a couple of older hard lefties who are just as crazy.
Mm-hmm.
But back to the woke thing. I had friends and this is a media issue to me. Yes, there was a Palestinian supporter guy in a headscarf who was waving a flag, who punched a Jewish kid in the face with that pole.
Yeah.
Terrible. Who attacked a Jewish kid who was just trying to walk by the protest. But that's not the only thing that happened that day. But that's what the media covered over and over and over. And all my Jewish friends who are on the side of Israel we have to be afraid because we have to preserve Israel no matter what. I don't think there's any likelihood that Israel will not be preserved. It's a major country with industrialized, wealthy, with nuclear weapons that they don't talk about. So I'm not really that worried about Israel. And especially because the major Arab nations surrounding are more afraid of Hamas and Iran than they are of Israel right now, and actually want to normalize relations and want to make peace and want to trade and say, yes, Israel has the right to, Egypt is on board, Lebanon is on board, Saudi Arabia, they all want a deal. They don't want this thing to continue and expand. And yet, in the American media, all you're seeing is hate from, people say, well, I want to, Lance posted this, our friend Lance, when I see a sign that says, free the hostages, I was like, I've seen lots of those.
Yeah.
I've seen lots of Jews for ceasefire. I know people who are Jewish and are for ceasefire. I'm one of them. So, ceasefire doesn't mean you stop defending yourself. It just means you allow humanitarian aid, you let people leave, you stop just carpet bombing everything, Yeah. But, of course, Hamas is still attacking. They had some missiles just yesterday or something like that they shot down. So
they're not going to give up.
No, and what upsets me is all the hatred from, pro-Palestinian groups and pro-Israel groups toward each other. They're mirroring the war over there, of course. And it's not, I don't think most people, if you actually listen, if you go to Al Jazeera, for example, you're going to see stories from Palestinians talking about other things. They don't hate Jews. They don't hate Israel. They don't like Hamas. So I don't know. I don't know what we do when our media is in collusion and any kind of idea that you could make peace is considered woke. And, it's scary.
Yeah. It's frustrating.
It is frustrating.
Yeah.
Because I know for a fact, there were thousands of people in the street protesting Netanyahu and calling for a ceasefire. Did you see that on our news anywhere?
No, that's not going to happen.
No. So, anyway, that's my axe to grind today. Let's play another song.
Cool.
Since we just talked about it, I think I want to play Sounds Like Freedom, because we were talking about that before, inhabiting another character, and and I just like the word freedom. So
sounds good to me.
Let's see. That's track 11. Here we go. Sounds Like Freedom from Scott Will's new CD. New album, because it isn't always just a CD. It's also digital.
It's a virtual.
Virtual as well. And it is called Transients Welcome, which is a great title.
Born to wear the mark of Cain, we learn from birth to walk in chains, then spend our lives in struggle to be free. You can break a chain with a hammer strike, cut a chain with a railroad spike, but you can't break a chain that you can't see. And we have felt the ties that bind the body, spirit, and the mind, from Eden to the streets of Babylon. But history won't concern us here. The time is now, and we know we're a long time coming, a long time gone. Train whistle calling on the mountain, ships whistle calling on the sea. That they sound to you like they're crying, sound like freedom to me. went to her room and cried. Papa caught that outbound ride when they were overtaken by the blues. I've known the joys of hearth and home. Thought I'd lost the urge to roam, but I still wear my daddy's traveling shoes. Train whistle calling on the mountain, ships whistle calling on the sea. That they smile to you like they're crying, sound like freedom to me. There comes a time when a fella feels the hellhound nipping at his heels and needs to grab a bigger piece of sky. So I'll take a chance on the open road, put my faith in the drifter's code. I can't outrun myself, but I can try. So if you see me down the track and there's a shadow at my back, you'll know that's just the devil chasing me. Then darling, raise your window high, say a prayer as I pass by. I know I can't be good, but I'll be free. Train whistle calling on the mountain, ships whistle calling on the sea. It may sound to you like they're crying, sound like freedom to me. Rain whistle calling on the mountain, ships whistle calling on the sea. It may sound to you like they're crying, sound like freedom to me.
Oh, yeah. Sounds like freedom to me, too. What a great song, Scott.
Thank you.
I just wanted to refer to something which I think just popped out of my head, which had to do with which comes first, the words or the music, and how you structure things. I was listening to an NPR report on AI and music.
Yeah.
And they played something which was kind of scary, kind of interesting, describing that the new algorithm allows them to give this sort of cloud of words and terms, and then the algorithm comes up with a song. So they said sad, folk rock, alternative, indie, kind of depressed, kind of, and they gave it all these different things and came up with this song. And it had a hook, it had a structure, it sounded like a lot of other things. It wasn't terrible, but it wasn't, as I've noticed with all these AI song creations, not very soulful.
Yeah.
Even though it matched the criteria that they described. But
kind of vanilla.
Yes. But the thing that they described is if they have a song structure but no lyrics, the AI will produce gibberish and do the song in gibberish. And I thought, actually, that's a really interesting approach to developing. If you have a song but not a lyric, and you kind of have a melody idea, that you could sing just gibberish until your subconscious provides the answer you're looking for.
I do that.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah, I do that.
I sort of scat, so that's a similar thing, but I've never tried putting the syllables in.
Yeah. sometimes I'll sing gibberish into a recorder when I'm trying to get an idea down, so I don't forget the
melody and
the melody
yeah.
and the phrasing,
Right.
the meter,
Yeah.
and the words don't matter at that point.
Right. It's a placeholder.
Yeah.
So, kind of horrifying and also interesting that AI can do that too. And I did post on Facebook, there was a song from like the 1980s, some European guy who didn't speak English, and he did this really catchy tune, and he was singing gibberish. And it was actually pretty awesome. It was gibberish intended to be English.
Yeah.
But he was Italian or something.
Yeah.
It was very funny. And then I heard this report and I thought, oh, that's interesting.
We saw an exhibit of the art of David Bowie a couple years ago. And there was a section on, late in his life, he was experimenting with using AI to write songs. And he was developing these programs with some computer engineers to generate lyrics, and I think his last album had a lot of that.
It's interesting. I did read that he used to tear up slips of paper with words on them in a hat and pick out like 10 and then look at that and let the mind make connections. And later he had a kid write a program that would do that for him.
Yeah.
Randomly select 10 words. So this sounds like he just kept going in that
in that direction.
I think AI is amazing. I think it is a tool like any other tool. It should be used by us. I just saw a pretty bad movie, but it had an interesting point. It was Jennifer Lopez, and the movie is called, it's a single name. It's a science fiction movie, Atlas.
Oh, yeah. I read about that.
Not a very good movie, but the idea that human plus AI together, which is what happens in these big robot warrior things they created, these vehicles, there's a syncing of the mind, and so the human consciousness is able to direct things, but the AI is able to respond, with lightning speed and do all these, it has weapons, it has all kinds of things it can do. And I thought, yeah, we're going there. We're going to go into all kinds of biogenetic engineering and different things like that. But we've got to be careful. We've got to pay attention, to what that means. Because in the same movie is the idea that the AI tried to destroy the human race, the AI by itself. And the humans were destroying the planet. But so the movie is proposing that we need each other, human and machine together. I'm not sure about that, but I do think we need to use our intelligence to create better and better tools for ourselves to use. But like the woman on Facebook said, I don't want AI to make my art. I want them to do my dishes, so I can make my art.
Yeah, right.
Which makes a lot more sense to me too.
Turn my dishes into art.
That's right. All right. Well, we are getting low on time, and I promised I would play one of mine, so I'm going to play. Check.
Well, all right.
I'm holding up my new CD, and Scott's. We should probably take a picture of that.
We're going to do that.
Yeah.
We're going to do that.
Okay. And this song is. I just was looking. I've got the right track. Let's hope it plays. This is called "Park Your Dark" from my new CD, Val Leventhal. The name of the CD is "Sibling Revelry."
One of my favorites.
Thank you so much. And what the name or the person or both?
The song.
oh yeah. Song. Okay. And here's one about not being negative. Park your dark at the door. I just can't take it anymore. You've got a proclivity for negativity, that's for sure. Park your dark at the door. I know what you've got in store. So take your judgmental eye and just say goodbye at the door. Park your dark at the door. someplace I won't explore, because I've had my fill, can't take your failure of will anymore. Park your dark at the door before I really get sore. I've got no time for despair, leave that trash over there by the door. Everybody has a bad day every once in a while, but you never ever have a glad day. I guess it's just not your style. Park your dark at the door, you really can be quite a bore. You're always bringing me down, turning my smile to a frown. What's that for? Park your dark at the door, and all your misery du jour. Please wear more colors than black if you want to come back through my door. Everybody has a bad day every once in a while, but you never have a glad day. I guess it's just not your style. Yeah. Park your dark at the door, and all your misery du jour. I've got no time for despair, leave that trash over there by the door. Oh yeah, I've got no time for despair, leave that trash over there by the door. Yeah. Park your dark at the door, please. That song is a personal story that came from talking to a friend of mine who's unfortunately no longer with us. I told you that story.
Yeah, I remember that.
My friend Robin Kay, because of all the people bringing their negativity while she was dying of cancer, it's like, no, thank you.
Yeah.
So
don't need that.
Don't need that. We're almost out of time, as always happens to me. I think, how am I going to fill the show? And then, whoop, it's over. So I want to make sure and say that at some point in the coming months or weeks or however it turns out, I would like to have your lovely wife, Betsy Means, who is sitting here smiling at me in the studio and taking pictures, come on in her capacity as Elizabeth Kubler-Ross and then as herself, like we did with Mother Jones early in the show history. And we can talk about all this death and dying that's going on. I think that'll be an interesting show to have. So, and next week I have the wonderful Jim Gary is finally going to come in and be a guest. And he's got a new CD also called Lost and Found, and I'll play some stuff from that, and that'll be fun. Jim has quite a history in the folk circuit. He knows a lot of people. I'm hoping he can. Speaking of storytellers, he can tell us some fun stories about well-known artists. That's always interesting. And what else? Tell us where people can find you again and what they should be looking for. And
I think the best place to go would be to Bandcamp and just go in the search engine and look up Transients Welcome or Claxton Clay. That's the name of the band.
Transients Welcome by Claxton Clay. Should take you to that Bandcamp page, and you can listen to the album all the way through for free, or you can download it, or you can order a CD.
Oh, always nice.
you can get a look at the album artwork, which is, you don't get with a download, but you can look at it and you can download that too.
Yeah. Nice.
And there's a lyric book that gives all the lyrics for each of the songs.
That's great.
And yeah, so Bandcamp is probably the way to go.
I think so. My new album will be released on Bandcamp on June 20th. I've uploaded it with all the metadata and all that stuff.
Yeah.
And we're just going to have a final time on June 22nd. Oh, I should also announce June 9th as part of the Chicago Blues Festival thing going on at City News Cafe. I will be performing a couple of sets of blues with the wonderful Patrick Renninger on harmonica and Alpha Stewart on percussion. Yeah. I'm going to try to, it's just going to be acoustic. We're going unplugged, but I have a lot of songs that, as you can hear from that last one, are in the category, at least loosely, of blues or funk or R&B. So,
well, I can testify. You all sound good acoustically.
Thank you. Yeah, because we get together and do that together. Right. Well, we're almost out of time, so I want to encourage everyone to find something positive that you can bring to the world between this week and next week, and just get on with it.
Get in some good trouble.
That's right. Get in some good trouble. And thank you so much to Scott Wills, and I will be back next week. Hungry people still need food. Find a way to do some good. On with it. Yeah, you gotta get on with it. Take the time to heal your heart. And when you're ready to play your part, get on with it. Yeah, on with it.